Hello friendos and randos, welcome back to another video. Today we are going to be talking about one of the new kind of really popular leaders now that EB01 is out, which is the Black Yellow Luffy. Even in OP06 you were seeing quite a bit of play, and I think it went top 8 at the Malaysian Bandai Card Game Festival also. But I will be showing you a little bit about the deck list as well as letting you know the OP06 version right after ST13 came out, and then after that I'll tell you more about the EB01 version that is currently seeing quite a bit of play. Before we go into the deck list, let's talk a bit about the leader effect. Leader effect is, according to the rules, if any of your face up life were to be added to your hand, instead send them to the bottom of your deck. Then Dawn times 2, activate main once per turn, discard one card from your hand. Then if you have 0 cards in your life zone, then add up to 2 cost 5 characters from your trash or hand to your life. So note that it's exactly 5 cost. You can't add 4 cost or lower characters to your life, and also they always come in face up. Make sure of course to also do it in the right order depending on how you want them to actually be placed, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later. So now that we've talked about the leader for a bit, let's look at the individual cards as well as the playstyle and what you can kind of expect from the deck. So the deck itself is pretty straightforward. Most of it will revolve around the three brothers cards, so Luffy, Sabo and Ace, and trying to get their respective transformation effects to get your leader to be 7 or even 9k base power. So first up we have the 2 cost Luffy. So all of the small versions have the same effect basically, which is activate main, send this character to the trash, and then reveal the top card of your life if it is a 5 cost version of the same character name, so Monkey D. Luffy, Portgas D. Ace, or Sabo. Then you may play it down, and then after that give your leader plus 2k power until the start of your next turn. So it gives you 7k or 9k base power depending on how many of them you stack up. So I won't talk too much about the individual young versions. They don't really have many differences to them other than the fact that they only call down one of each specific character. At the moment, only Sabo has 2 different options to call down from this deck, the black Sabo and the yellow Sabo. But in OP07 we will be getting another yellow Luffy, the egghead version of Luffy. Maybe I'll put the effect on the screen here. If I'm not wrong, it is trash this character, KO up to one of your opponent's cost 4 or less characters, and then after that the trigger is also KO up to one of your opponent's cost 4 or lower characters. So kind of like the promo Zoro, but more expensive I guess as a card, because it is a 5/6 and the art looks really nice. I'm really excited to see it. Okay, so let's talk about the individual bigger versions, the adult versions of the brothers. So first up we have the 5 cost Luffy card. So 5 cost Luffy's effect is activate main once per turn, give this character plus 2000 power until the start of your next turn, and then if you have 1 life or more, then draw 1 card and then trash the top card of your life. So you can use this when you have 0 life. You won't get to draw a card, but it will still get the plus 2k. So this is essentially a 5 cost 8k beater, which is really strong. On top of that, it also prevents you from getting starved at 1 life. So if your opponent was to try and not attack you so you can't activate your leader effect, you can simply use this effect to trash your top life, and then you can also get to draw a card, which is really great. All in all, very strong card. 5 cost 8k beater is of course a very good stat line, and even has that 1k counter too, so really good. For Sabo, we're only running the black version in this deck. I felt the yellow version is not very powerful, and the black version is extremely powerful, so we're running 4 of the black Sabo. Of course, no stranger to this card. He's popular in Moria, in Sakazuki, etc. Effect is blocker, and on play all of your characters cannot be KO'd by effects until the start of your next turn. So very strong card. I also forgot to mention the cycle, which also lets you fill your trash with cards you need for your Moria later. And last but not least, we have Ace, and Ace's 5 cost adult form effect is on play, if your opponent has 2 life or less, this character gains rush. So gaining rush is really good. Rush 5 cost 7k vanilla stat line is good as well. Missing the counter stat of course because of that powerful rush effect as well as the vanilla stat line, but I do like that it is 5 cost 7k of course. And again, it does come out of life with your baby Ace, so that's also very good. Very strong aggro effect, that you can use with your leader effect to bring down 2 aces even to swing 779. Sorry, 7711, because you plus 4k to leader and have the 2 Dawn attached as well. So this is the base for basically every black yellow Luffy deck. Some of them will add the yellow Sabo, but generally I don't think it's really worth it. And then of course they will also be using the 1 cost Garp Searcher. So on play, look at the top 5 cards of your deck and grab 5 cost or lower Monkey D. Luffy, Sabo, or Podgas the Ace from that top 5, and then after that bottom the rest of the cards. So just a very generic searcher, but it only specifically searches these cards as well as any other cards that are within this cost range and have the same names. So that's really nice. That specifically kind of looks out for his little grandkids. So I quite like that. And he is the primary searcher that we will be using for this deck. Some decks are also running the searcher event, which is the Three Brothers Bonds. I personally don't like that event as much, but I will show you what it does over there. It's basically a 1 cost event. Its effect is main, look at the top 5 cards of your deck, choose 5 costs or lower Luffy, Ace, or Sabo, and then add it to your hand. But I will show you what does take its slots later. Alright, the next card is, of course, the most broken black card in the game, 8 cost Moria. On play, bring back a cost 4 and a cost 2 character card from your trash, 1 active and 1 rested. That's what you will be using to grab your baby Luffy's, Sabos, or Aces from your trash, and then after that using those effects with your leader effect to bring them down, the 5 cost versions as well. So Moria is really powerful. Your 10 on turn being Moria plus leader effect plus double henshin is really strong. Next, we're going to talk a little bit about some of the new EB01 cards that this deck has gotten. And the first one is Flampe, very notable for being a real bitch in the anime and manga, but has become a staple card unfortunately. And her effect is, on play, you may take the top or bottom card of your life to your hand, and then after that draw 1 card. Notably, if you are using Flampe as a way to get rid of your face-up lives as Luffy, you aren't able to draw the card since you weren't able to fulfill the cost of adding a card to your hand. But if you are using it on face-down life, you can still, take the life and then draw a card. So this is really good against against staff strategies that try to not hit your face so that you can't use your leader effect. So not only does it let you take that life, it also lets you draw a card to replace this card from your hand. So that's really good. Other than that, in general, it just is 2k counter, so it's a good replacement for what we were running previously. I think most decks were running Satori in this spot previously, and this does help with just helping you, for 1, draw more cards in the early game, and for 2, preventing those style strategies that can be a bit difficult to manage. Next, for the other 2k counters, we are also running 3 of the 1 cost Makino. Take the top or bottom card of your life to your hand, and then after that look at all of your life and then rearrange them in your desired order. So again, pretty good, especially if you're lucky and you manage to see some of the big brothers in your life. You're able to adjust that position and then maybe bring down a little brother to henshin into them right after that too. And to take a little bit less variance of that, we also have 3 of the 2 cost Hiyori. Hiyori's effect is, on play, you may take the top or bottom card of your life to your hand, and then after that place 1 of your hand cards on the top of your life pile. So again, notably, if you are using any of these 2k counters effects on face up life cards, you will not be able to use their secondary effects to place down another life card, because all of them require you to add a life card to your hand as the cost. Okay, now we're going to look at the last 8 spots that we have for this deck. So for EB01, we also have a really powerful new card in the 2 cost Viola blocker. So Viola's effect is, on play, choose 1 of the following effects. Look at all of your opponent's life cards and then change them in your desired order and put them back down. And number 2 is turn all of your face up life cards face down. So this is really powerful, especially if you're forced to be kind of on low life or 0 life before your Moria is online, or if you don't have Moria even, or you don't have enough of the brothers to perform your henshin shenanigans. This can be really powerful to make it so that you can still survive or stall the game a little bit longer. We are also running 2 of the ST13 Newgate. This Newgate is on play. You may add the top card of your deck to your life pile, and then after that, look at all of your life, rearrange it in any order, and then place one of the cards on top of your deck. So, notably, you can put your face-up life cards onto the top of your deck. You just gotta make sure that you review that you're doing that, so that your opponent knows you're not cheating or anything like that. But it is a pretty good option, especially against staff strategies where you're just going to basically draw a card and then rearrange the life. So it's kind of like a bigger Makino in that sense. And you don't lose a life for it too. Whereas for Makino, you do have to add one of your life cards to your hand. This one is draw a card in the sense that you take it from your top deck and then you look around, and then you can even choose one of your life cards which you want in your hand to put on your top deck. Okay, last 4 slots in this deck. I think the last 4 slots for me go to number 1, Shirahoshi. Shirahoshi is of course staple card in yellow decks as well. On play, draw 3 cards, discard 2 cards. This really helps you with filling your trash for your Moria turn. Gets your 5 costs and your 2 costs in trash if needed, so that you can bring them back later with both your leader effect as well as Moria's effect. And on top of that, it is a 5 cost, so you can also use your leader effect to bring back Shirahoshi from your trash to your life, and then use Viola to flip them face down, so you can trigger out the Shirahoshi as well. So, big fan of Shirahoshi in this deck as well, to take up that last couple of slots. And for my final slots, I also wanted to put down 2 of the OPO6 Reject cards. I think Reject is a very, very powerful event card. In general, it does help you with closing out games as well as removal. For example, if your opponent drops a 5-cost unit that is pretty scary, like a 4-cost Kuzan, being able to clear it with this is really good. I also prefer it over the 5-cost yellow Sabo because it doesn't cost you a life to remove units, and lastly, it also can of course can also be used for that finisher effect. Takes one of your opponent's last lives. If you have 0 life, you can you don't have to trash your own life or add your own life to hand as well. You can still just deal damage to your opponent. So on your 10 dawn turn, you can do things like put 2 on leader, heal 2 rush aces, and then transform 1 time, swing 7, transform a 2nd time, swing 7, and then reject, and then swing 11 to finish. Or you can just play 1 ace and then swing 9, reject 11. So pretty strong card in general. I think it definitely deserves a spot in the deck. The list is very tight. You can see I'm having to run 2-2-2-2 to kind of flash up these last few slots. But I think this is probably what I like most with my limited testing of EB01 Luffy. In the OPO6 meta before Viola and Flampe were options, I think generally this slot was for Satori, and you were running 4 Hiyori and 4 Makino, and then 2 Satori. Or maybe even 4 Satori if you wanted to run more 2k counters. And then in the Viola slot and the Newgate slot, maybe some decks were running 4-cost Borsalino, some decks were running just the Searcher event to be more consistent, some decks were running even things like Perona 2k counter just so you have an additional option for your 8-cost Moria to call down, or even 4-cost Kuzan. But I think a lot of these options are definitely viable, and it depends on what exactly you're looking to kind of achieve out of the deck list. Now that we've talked quickly about how the deck works, let's quickly go through the perfect curve for this deck as well as what you are basically looking for most games and your mulligan criteria too. Okay, let's talk about Dawn curve. So generally when you're playing BY Luffy, you will want to go second because your 10 Dawn turn is where you really get that power spike. And we'll talk a little bit about the curve leading up to that 10 dawn turn before we talk about what this power spike really is. So generally on your 1 dawn turn, or your 2 dawn turn, sorry, you're going to be looking at a few different options. First is Guard, of course, just to search whatever pieces you're missing. And the priority is usually to just get the ones that you are missing. If not, then you want to get the 5-cost versions so that you have reasonable bodies to put down. But generally, if your hand is already full of 5-cost versions, of course you're looking for 2-cost versions instead. So the other option now with EB01 is of course dropping down the Flampe. Flampe is good as well, so that we have more card draw, drawing 2 cards on turn 1. Another option is also the Makino and the Hiyori. So all of your 2k counter options are pretty good to drop down on the 1 Don turn. I don't prefer to drop Hiyori or Makino, the main reason being that if your opponent knows that you've seen your life, generally they will attack you hard enough that you want to take that life and you won't be able to defend it well. Generally, I prefer doing Makino or Hiyori on the 4 Don turn instead, but we'll talk about that in a bit. And lastly, of course, for EB01, we also now have the option to do Viola on 2 Don. Viola on 2 Don is actually pretty decent. Being able to get 4 cards worth of hand knowledge is pretty strong. Usually 4 cards, sometimes 5, depending on the opponent, of course. And against yellow leaders in particular, it's good to know what triggers to play around and what you can kind of expect. Like being able to move Okiku to the top life so that you can force them to trigger into it when you are still above 3 life is also pretty good. So these are generally your turn 1 plays, and then your turn 2 play would normally be to attack with the cup or the flampe. If not, then you want to do Makino or Hiyori into a transformation. These are also decent options, but they both kind of involve you having to have either the big and the small version in your life, or the small version and then the corresponding big version already in hand. So both of these are a little bit high rolly in the sense that you need to have the pieces already there, but if you can pull it off, it's really strong. Otherwise, just swinging with your leader and the searcher is also a pretty good play. That's why some decks also run 4-cost Kuzan or 4-cost Borsalino in order to fill this slot, just to make sure that you can do something and have a body and everything. But I think for now, this is also a decent play, and it's probably the play you're looking forward to. On the 6 Don turn, generally you will drop one of the brothers. So that's where all of the options are. You would play 5-cost Ace, Sabo, or Luffy. My preference is generally Luffy, because on the 8 Don turn, what I would do is I would swing with the Luffy, drop Ace, and then swing with both Luffy and Ace. So I would tend to hold the Ace for the 8 Don turn instead, usually. But on the 6 Don turn, generally this is what you're looking for. If not, that's why we also run the 6-cost Newgate. 6-cost Newgate on play, of course, lets you put your top deck to your life, and then after that rearrange, select what you're going to draw next turn as well. So that's really good on curve especially, and the body is nice too. It's not small by any means, and it has 1k counter, so it's a good card to include. And last, of course, if you have really no options, Shirahoshi is also a pretty good option here. And for my specific deck list, if your opponent is playing on curve, they play a 5-cost unit, you can also use reject to get rid of it, and then use the last 2 Don to attack with your leader. So pretty widespread of options on the 8 Don turn in particular. Sorry, the 6 Don turn in particular. And then the 8 and 10 Don turn are where things are pretty standard as well. It really depends on how much life you've already taken by this point. So if you are on 0 life at 8 Don, what you would usually do is you would put 2 Don on leader, and then you would use either 2 or 4 Don to use your respective transformation sequences. So something like this to transform. If you are on 2 life or more, it's also an option to just call down Gecko Moria and then use Gecko Moria's effect to call down like Viola or Garp or Hiyori, even things like that, to just adjust your life, draw more cards, etc, etc, and just to establish a big body. Otherwise, you can just continue with whatever you are doing on the 6 Don turn, play down another unit, attack with leader, attack with the units, etc, etc. Now, the biggest combo will always be on your 10 Don turn. On your 10 Don turn, you would take 2 Don, put it on your leader, and then after that, play down Moria. Using your leader effect, you would call down either any 2 of your 5-cost brothers to your life, and then using Moria, you would call down any corresponding 2-cost brothers to your board. So 1 active and 1 rested. And then you would transform them accordingly. Generally, the most common combo is Ace and Sabo. So Ace and Sabo would go onto the top of your life pile, usually Ace on top and then Sabo below, so that Ace is also immune to being KO'd by effects. And then you would transform accordingly, and your board would be an 18 Don worth of board. and your leader would also be a 9k base power leader, which is very, very strong. Going first, you're going to play for a very similar curve, just delayed probably by 1 turn because of the fact that you are going to the 1, 3, 5, 7, 9 curve instead of the 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. But the curve will basically still be very, very similar. You are going to delay your Moria by 1 turn from the turn 5. Now you're going to be doing on turn 6. But it is just the price you have to pay for losing the dice roll, am I right? Generally, I think the deck has strengths, and the main one of them is being a 7k or 9k base power leader fairly consistency. And the main weakness, I feel, is that it struggles into decks that do bottom deck effects a lot. So things like RP Law and Sakazuki. Sakazuki is a really bad matchup for this. It also struggles into pudding. So if you were just eating your first few lives for free and not countering at all, and you didn't have things to play down on your 4-down turn, or you were using your searchers and stuff, it's very easy to just get 4-cost pudding and then lose your entire hand and then cry. But that's something that you also have to take note of. So usually against blue decks, what you would have to do is to counter out early so that you can avoid the pudding, and also make sure you fill your trash with these 5-cost units and 2-cost units that do have the counter, so you can call them back later with Moria. Okay, that being said, the deck is pretty fun. I think it has a strong potential to do well, and has a good position, I think, now in the meta, especially in EB01 with the support that they've gotten in Viola and Flampe. I think these two are really, really good cards. Viola especially is very strong. Lots of times that I've had to heal 2 Shiroshis or maybe 2 brothers to life, and then after that drop Viola just to put myself to stall a little bit longer before I get to draw my Moria or draw the relevant pieces that I need. But end of the day, it is a very piece reliant deck. You do have to know what to search for in particular, and then make sure to play to your outs. The most common combos you will see are just transforming any big brothers, Moria into Ace and Sabo, playing down the Luffy, using Hiyori into transformation, Flampe into transformation, Flampe into leader effect, Hiyori or Makino into leader effect. These are all of like the basic combos that you can kind of expect Black Yellow Luffys to pull on you. I don't think most are running reject, but I think it's a really good card, so I think that you should include it if you have them. And otherwise, that is basically it. Thank you, friendos and randos, for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, make sure to drop a like and a subscribe to the channel, and follow me on X for all of my other adventures. Thank you so much once again. Shout out to my channel members for supporting me, and to everyone, of course, for watching my videos. If you made it this far, I appreciate you a lot. Thank you. And peace out, everyone. Do